Hello, and welcome to Chapter 1 of the CAGED method. We just did an introduction video. If you haven't seen that, you'll be able to check out the link if you want to just get a general overview of what I'm doing. But basically, we're going to go through the CAGED method with a series of videos that lead you through it step by step. And this is the best place to start. What we're going to cover today is the real foundation of the CAGED method and a look at how to apply it to the guitar neck. The CAGED method is all about looking at open chords like C, A, G, E, and D. Those are our open major chords. And applying that knowledge to the rest of the neck. Looking at the rest of the neck through the lens of the open chords. For rhythm playing, for lead playing, for all sorts of stuff. So, if you want to check out the introduction again, you can, but we're going to jump right in, assuming we really know nothing other than open chords. So let's get started. The best way to apply the CAGED method and understand what it is to learn what I call the three pillars of CAGED. The three pillars of CAGED are: identify the shape and create a movable voicing, identify the root note within the shape, learn the notes on the appropriate string. So we're going to go through each one of those pieces one by one. Let's start with pillar number one. Identify the shape and create a movable voicing. And let's start with the first half of that. Identify the shape. So, let's take our open C major chord. So the first thing we need to do is identify the shape. What's the shape of a chord? Well, the shape is two things. It's the relationship that the notes have to one another on the fretboard, and subsequently it's the sound of the chord. So, I think of the shape as like a constellation, right, of stars. You can kind of visualize the shape that way. And this is the sound of the shape. Without calling it anything, I'm just going to say it sounds like this. It sounds good. So let's experiment. What happens if we move a finger? So maybe you inadvertently place the first finger on the third string. And there's your shape. So the shape has changed of the notes, constellation has changed, and the sound has changed. Right? In an undesirable way. At least for the moment. We don't really want this. Let's try another thing. What if we... Okay, so the shape is the fingers, right? This is kind of what we established. What if we just go ahead and start moving that? Up the neck, for example. Still doesn't work. Doesn't sound that great. Why is that? Well, we figured out that the fretted notes are a part of the shape, but we forgot or didn't realize that the open notes are also a part of the shape. So this open C chord has an open E, first string, and an open G on the third string. So when I move the shape, I'm actually only moving part of the shape, and I'm kind of distorting the shape, which distorts the sound of the chord. Right? So identifying the shape of an open chord means understanding that both the fretted notes and the open notes are part of the shape. That's the first half of pillar one. The second half is create a movable voicing. So a movable voicing is one that you can move up and down the neck from fret to fret without having it sound wrong, like this. That's not a movable voicing because it sounds wrong. So the way to create a movable voicing on the guitar is generally with a technique called barring. So barring is essentially where you act like your own capo and you bring the open chord up the neck. So let's get started. The way to bar a chord on the guitar is generally to, number one, re-finger it with different fingers. So we're going to take our C chord and we're going to play with fingers 2, 3, and 4 instead of 1, 2, and 3. And this leaves our first finger free to kind of lay across the nut. And when we move up the neck, act as a bar. So I'm bringing the open notes with me. And if you notice, the shape has remained the same. That's key. We identified the shape and then we created a movable voicing so that we could keep the shape. Now, a little tip on the C bar, you don't have to reach all the way to the sixth string because you really only need to bar the first and the third strings. So go ahead and try to move this up and around the neck and see what happens. While it might not be perfect, you get some fret buzz, muted strings, whatever. The idea should be that the chord sounds right. Wherever you kind of move it, it sounds right. Doesn't sound bad. Sounds right. And this is a really important thing. I don't want you to move forward until you really grasp this. We identify the shape and we used a movable voicing to keep the shape. That's super important, right? Now, as you're moving this around and experimenting with it, we know that it sounds right, but we might ask, is it still C? Right? Kind of looks like a C, but what's going on? Well, the answer to that is no, and that brings us to the second pillar of CAGED. Identify the root note within the shape. But what does that mean? Well, a root note is a note upon which the chord is based around. It's the sort of central note we think of it, the foundation of a chord. And each CAGED shape has a root note within it. Now the thing we have to know to take advantage of this is that the frets on the guitar correspond to frets of the notes of the musical alphabet. So without any sharps and flats, A, B, C, D, E, F, and G. So as you move a shape from fret to fret, you're actually moving the root note within the shape from note to note, which means the chord is going to take on a new root note, which means it's going to be a different chord. So the root note within the C shape is this. It's the 3rd fret on the 5th string. Now you can also think of that as the pinky on the 5th string. So wherever you place the pinky, the chord will take on the letter name of that note, because that's the new root note. So C becomes something else, becomes something else, becomes something else, and that something else we're going to get to is based upon the name of this note, or the name of this note, or the name of this note. You're playing a chord named after this note. Right? So you could play a major chord, a chord that sounds like this, on any note in the musical alphabet by positioning the C shape somewhere on the neck. Pillar 3 is learning the notes on the appropriate strings. You could master the C shape, completely understand the root note idea, but not be able to play a G chord with the C shape because you have no idea where a G note is to place the root note to, right? So that's knowledge that we have to build. If I want to play a G with the C shape, I have to know that that's a G note, and then I place my C shape at the G. G, G. A, E, E. So the way to approach this is to just start with the string you need. You don't have to learn every note on the neck at once. You don't have to learn every string. You only need to learn the one that you need to use the shape. So in the C shape, it's the 5th string. If you want to play a D chord, got to know that's a D. Now you could start just by learning the natural notes, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and A. Or you could start with chords you need to play. You want to play, you play a lot in the key of E, start with an E. That's at the 7th fret, that's an E chord. Maybe you play a lot of like G to C, so here's your G, and then maybe pair that with your open C. So you don't have to learn anything in a particular order in terms of notes, but learn what you're going to use, and don't feel like you have to learn it all at once. That's the secret to memorizing notes and learning music theory. Learn stuff that's immediately applicable, and don't try to learn everything at once. That's the CAGED method. That is the entire CAGED method. If you understand that, you could apply that to any open chord shape, a major shape, a minor shape, a 7th shape of some kind, some other altered shape you have in open position. If you get that, you could be off and running. Now I have a lot more videos to come on how to really apply this and understand it, so I hope you'll stick with me. But I wanted to start with this because if you get the foundations of the CAGED method, you can be on your way. You can be off and on your way. So let's review. The foundations of the CAGED method, the most important thing to take away from this are the 3 pillars. Pillar number 1, identify the shape and create a movable voicing. The shape is the fretted notes and the open strings. A movable voicing is generally a bar chord, or at the very least, one that doesn't have any open notes, or we've accounted for the open notes. Pillar number 2, identify the root note within the shape. In the C shape, it's the 5th string, and it's going to be played by the pinky note. So wherever you move this, you'll get a chord of this letter. or of this letter, or of this letter. Pillar number 3, learn the notes on the appropriate string. You can't play an E chord if you don't know that this is an E to play the C shape in that position. You can't play an A if you don't know that this is an A to play the C shape in that position. It's very important that you go that extra step and you work to learn the notes on the neck. Now, you don't have to learn them all at once. You can learn one string at a time, and you could even only learn a couple notes on that string because you got to play a couple specific chords for a specific song. It's very manageable if you take it in a step-by-step way. Don't try to learn everything at once. Learn it as it's applicable to you and your guitar playing, and learn it one step at a time. That is the introduction to the CAGED method, the 3 pillars which will hopefully shed light on how it's all applied and what the real process is to using it. We got a couple more videos coming, going through every shape, going through a lot of different inversions, choice voicings as I call them, lots of different cool stuff to help you on your journey. Thanks for watching. Hope you click like and subscribe if you liked the video. We'll see you in the next one.